Hello, everyone. My name is Alexander Ermenkov. I'm a ruling reality coach, and today's 2nd of February 2023, and I'm continuing my daily reality with Alex, where I'm expressing myself daily and giving you different ruling reality perspectives that are able to help all of us understand reality, work strongly through reality in deepness. And it's very interesting, but understanding what is going on constantly is important, because even if me or you exist or don't exist, everything is going on anyhow. So once we are participators in reality, it's good to know what is going on. So let's start. Today, I would like to speak about reality of resurrection. And first of all, because I'm a Christian, this is something that I'm exploring a lot. I'm trying to understand it, and especially how to put it in the perspective of ruling reality and why there is no other possibility for the human beings to experience but through understanding the power of resurrection. As we all know through all our experiences, for sure, we know that the biggest fear in humanity is the fear of death, and that is all around us, and the case happening everywhere. If everything was like this, if in the beginning it was something different, we can assume, we can go in the ancient books, we can think about it, but the important part is to understand reality in the moment, but also we need to know the trends, we need to know the direction, and we need to know the beginning. Once we know all, then it's very easy for all of us to position ourselves in reality and to perform exactly as we were supposed to perform, because otherwise we're just trying different things on the surface of reality, and we are doing a lot of efforts, but without going through the deepness, without starting from the inside out, it is really not very efficient the way we are performing. By efficient, I mean that the possibilities and the probabilities are much, much bigger than what we are anyhow experiencing on a daily level. Will we ever, as human beings, achieve more of what we were predestined to achieve or to experience or to be aware of? It's up to each one of us to decide how far we are to go, and we can go. But the important thing is the gaining of awareness, of understanding of reality and what actually happens, what is going on. So I know a lot of people, especially in the personal development and in different type of thinking. If you think about the religions, that they are also representing some type of archetypes, and since whatever is already in the collective internal and whatever is already as predominant views, we have two options: or to ignore them, or to understand what is beneficial for our personal experience, to understand what is part of reality. And there is a big problem with reality, because reality is constructed in such a way that it absorbs everything, and because the long-term destination of reality is wholeness, and we as human beings prefer to exclude, but reality is inclusive. And that's why it's allowed for all of us to perform the way we want, to do whatever we desire. And the responses, of course, are different because there is a prime directive of reality where long-term what is beneficial is supported and what is not beneficial for all the beings is not supported. Also, it's very important to understand that in reality, of course, in our daily reality, we mostly envision and see human beings, and we think that since we are the predominant being in the earth realm, this is everything that is happening, and there is no other higher or more conscious being than us, and we are the kings and the ruler of this realm. So we feel that there is nothing else. But of course, we cannot ignore the fact that we are part of creation. And since this is so, there should be a creator. We are trying to seek it, to find it. It's not possible, of course, because creation is not possible to experience creator except by the expression of him through the creation. And here is where this resurrectional type of being, which is the Lord and the Savior, the so-called from many Jesus Christ, or the anointed Savior, the appointed Savior, and so on. And this figure and this type of deity exists. And for us Christians, we worship this being, and we know that there is a big power in this storytelling. But the important thing is why in all other and different ancient religions there is such a figure anyhow, and why in reality it is a necessity for a savior to exist. And saving from what? And why this death and resurrection cycle is so important, and what is exactly resurrected. And this is going to give us a lot of clues of why we are to understand. Of course, when we go into the higher hierarchical beings, there are two big tendencies. The one type of understanding is that there are a lot of gods. The other monotheistic religions think that there is only one God, but then except the one God, there are some other beings, and so on and so on. So it's a little bit confusing. But for sure, if we go from the prime directive that it is not possible, and by design creation is created in such a way that different types of beings were participating in different parts of creation, till we come to the reality that we are experiencing today. So the so-called God figure, or the father, or the primary being that is outside the creation, and how much was it? Only one? Was it three, as we the Christians think? And what were the initial forces that were part of the creations, and were first the elements created and then on different stages? But it doesn't matter how we think about the construct of reality creation. For sure, everything is happening in reality like pyramids, and it starts with the initial thoughts, it starts with the initial intent, but then because of this observational power of collapsing the probabilities is to exist in order everything to exist. And that's why from the beginning and from the initial stage, everything happens in stages, and different types of beings are inclusive in everything that is happening on different stages of the creation processes. And where and when this figure of Jesus Christ and the resurrectional power, because this is the greatest power that the Savior has, and why it was a necessity in one part of history this thing to appear, and not earlier, and not in the beginning, and maybe in the beginning it was not even seen, but was he still in the beginning, and so on. There are a lot of discussions, but what is more important for us today, in the day and age we are in, to understand how to use the resurrectional power of the Anointed One and the Savior in our daily reality. Of course, a lot of people are trying to go through reality without using religious labels, and this is a very strong tendency now, where we are just trying to have a spiritual experiences without personalizing, without giving the same labels as the old people were giving for deities and so on and so on. And we are now just much more intellectually able to make a lot of allegories with the nowadays reality, and we go into programs. Now, if we are saying, okay, let's just replace all the God's labeling with programs, then we can say that Jesus Christ is the resurrectional type of program. Of course, all of this can be discussed on the level of the subconscious and the archetypal existence of the human beings, as something that is important to know how to tap in, and why for us it's inevitable to go through reality and to go into our long-term destination without understanding the resurrectional power, and why it's possible only through us tapping into this program. If we go into labeling everything with programs, matrix, and such type of languages. But of course, does it mean that actually beings and the way that reality is structured, everything is not going through beings? And of course, we can say, yes, Alex, but if it's beings, we are also part of a programs, and we are programmable, and so on and so on. So it is all the time explanations of things that are not seen, as not possible to express with wordings and labelings. But just for the purpose of understanding the process, I'm going to use now, in order more people to understand it and not to do it religious type of thinking. And of course, everything is religion. If we think that it is possible to escape out of religious thinking in anything we are doing, it's not possible. Because deep inside the human being, we are willing to be validated, we are willing to please, we are seeking higher powers and whatever, and it only means that we are connected. And of course, religion is primarily the way up. We want to go to a state where we presuppose that we were, or we have the potential to be. Now, when we are thinking about the big figure of the Father is a being that is primary to everything. And for this type of being to exist or pre-exist or to be primary, the beautiful thing is that it allows everything to exist. Then we have different type of specificities which are below it. And of course, in order reality to anyhow exist, everything should be and is connected to a source. Otherwise, construct is not possible to be, and intelligence is not possible to survive, because in a sense there are communications and there are structures, and we see that in reality nothing happens by chance. And even when we see chaos, and even when we see this type of theory, still patterns are everywhere. So it means that even if all probabilities are possible, It only means that all the probabilities are part of the whole. And of course, all the creation was started, then when was the death principle came into the existence and the decay and so on and so on after the initial creation starts. But the moment the decay and this type of programs, if you can say it this way, were put also into the reality experience, immediately with this, the resurrectional program of Christ was also started. Of course, if you think in the primary level, even before existence to start, everything had its potential. So when we go to reality, it's up to us to decide, well, Alex, I'm going to use only 5 applications and see what is going to happen. I'm going to use maybe only 10 programs. I like only this program, and I'm going to use only this type of mindset, and I'm not going to use everything that is possible out there. And even I am going to ignore a lot of things. That's why my personal recommendation for all of us is never to exclude in reality what is possible and what is probable. That's why I listen and have a lot of non-Christianity type of information. I'm listening and constantly observing a lot of things that are not 100% connected with my core belief, and I'm constantly exploring and constantly trying to understand more and more reality without excluding whatever. So when we go in the different ancient religions, in the Buddhism, in the other religions that exist, whatever they are, and when we start deconstructing, and this is part of the Gnosticism type of thinking, where they're deconstructing everything into a spiritual experience and trying to extract all the things. And here, maybe the Zoroastrians were the first one that realized and were strongly being able to understand the idea of the one God or Godhead, and then that all these lot of gods were just things that are doing, or beings that are doing some things, but everything is connected to a source anyhow. And of course, we the human beings are somewhere down the hierarchy, and it may be unpleasant, but we are not the highest being that are existing in the moment, in the reality of the experience of everything. The other interesting thing is that creation hasn't finished, that we the human beings are beings that are still in transition. We're still not finished ones, and that's why here it's important to understand this resurrectional process and why all of us need the savior figure of Christ to understand it, to grasp it, to use it. And this is part of our life experience here, to understand also and experience this program and to embed it strongly inside of us, because otherwise it's not possible to break the power of death cycle. The death cycle is a very interesting cycle also. Of course, we personalize it through the program or the being of Satan, and there are a lot of pictures, images, or different experiences. But anyhow, the important thing is to understand that through the different stories, we were realizing that we were part of the letting out of this type of processes to happen on the realm of existence where we are the earth plane. And this material world, we think that it is something that is not interesting, but actually all the beings in all the creation are looking 100% totally into this so-called womb we call the earth and all the processes that are happening. And even in ancient religions, there is a big interaction between the so-called Gaia, the Mother Earth, and the Sun. And these type of interactions are part of the creational and resurrectional processes also. And there are different type of mythos that are expressing this type of potentials. But what is important here to understand that there are some expressions where we, the human beings, are just a harvest, and that we cannot understand reality if we don't accept the death process, that it is part of the creational process, and that if a seed doesn't fall into the ground and die, it is not possible this seed to become the flower or to become the fruit or to become the tree, and so on and so on. So there is a transformation of the so-called decay process that happened before the resurrectional process to come and to transmute the decay process. So in reality, a lot of processes are leashed out, and then balancing processes are happening, and based on this reality, and the beings are evolving and transforming and transmuting in some different things, or are leveling up, and so on. And inside of us, we have this desire to elevate, to lift up, to lighten, to go above, and so on and so on. We know that there is above, there is a below, and we don't quite understand what is happening, but there are urges in us, and we want to be elevated, we want to be ascended, and so on and so on. We want to long-term have a direction towards a higher states of existence. And deep inside of us, we know that there is something eternal, though a lot of us can think that everything starts and ends with the birth and then the death cycle. And it is beautiful to be like this, but if it was not, the idea of this resurrectional process is also existing. And in this resurrectional process, where Christ is the representation of this resurrectional process that is able to conquer death and is transmuting death, and so on and so on, here it is good to understand the first allegory, that if we are in the same way like the seeds, it means that we as human beings are still not what we are supposed to be in the future, because the future direction for the human beings is to become beings of light, to become different types of being, and in the moment we are just a seed. Then there is another big problem for the human beings, is that we know from nature that every apple seed is creating apple. Every different seed is creating according to its source. And in the human beings, of course, the human beings are reproducing themselves, and we think that this is what is the process, but there is also a deeper meaning of the seed that we are in the moment. And this is why morality and all these deep things are inside of us, and these ascension processes, and why we want to be like God, and this thing is inside of us, and we feel that we don't want long-term to be just earthly. We are in some type of transitions and so on. And here it's important to understand that if we think allegorically that we are in the moment in a harvest zone, and the experience on earth realm, where the Gaia, the sun, or the spiritual forces and the earthly forces are working with us as human beings, and we are just anyhow, all of us know, destined to die. The important thing which differentiates us, the human beings, from everything else that is able to be material here on this planet, is that we are 100% adaptable, programmable, and nobody can tell you 100% what exactly quality type of seed is going to fall into the ground in the end of its experience, and is going to start another transformational process, where for sure the body is not going to be the same, and we are going to be transformed into life-giving spirits or light beings, or whatever is this transformational, transfigurational process and different form and whatever it is. But the interesting thing is, during this experience here on the earth, some people are saying, okay, this is an earth school and now we are learning something, we are pressured, we are purified, and there are different ideas, because in the moment all the processes, the death process is working, the resurrectional process is working, and a lot of other processes are 100% working through us, with us, in us, to create something that in the end, when it taps into the ground and dies, it's going to produce different type of glorified beings or light beings, which are going to be differentiated. And here, this idea about the existence of health, the existence of evil and good, of separation in the end of this process of dividing the seeds that we are in the moment, of seeds that are going to be deserving the next level experience, and seeds that are going to enter a different type of experience where they're going to be useless. And this is a very big fear, and it is not less of a fear, the something like eternal uselessness, than the fear of just dying. And it is interesting to go through these type of experiences and understand and be open that everything is existence, and to understand these resurrectional processes and how deep they are embedded in reality, and how impossible for all of us is to evade them. And of course, all this type of understanding and information is going deeper and deeper, and we can go into these explorational processes as much as we want. But for sure, once we understand the opposing forces, because there is something inside of us that have a potential, and that the primary destiny for it is to become a beautiful light being, and there is this essence in all of us. So the forces that are leashed out, both the positive that are supporting us and the negative that are working against us, and we can summarize them with this saying where the opposing forces are just here to kill, steal, and destroy, and the supporting forces are here through the resurrectional power of Christ to give us life, and life abundantly. But where is this life and how it is produced? According to my personal observation as a Christian from 17 years old, it is not possible any type of life force and essence to really strongly work in us without this resurrectional power to work through our being. And then, of course, a lot of us have separated the experience of everything that is happening within the body, and some of us are thinking that only what is happening in the body, and there are a lot of Rosicrucians type of teachings and Kabbalah type of teachings and so on and so on. But that's why I'm explaining that never be closed. Always be as more open into exploration, because only then it is much more possible to be a being that is really grounded in reality, understand the necessity of interaction with reality, understand why it is a necessity for all of us to be constantly validating our experience with what is reality. And I know, because of the solipsism, all of us wants to just create their own personal subjective reality and don't want to experience everything else. And we are really beings that are constantly trying to stay in some small of separate bubbles without understanding everything. But once we open up and decide that we are okay to experience reality as it is, as raw as it might be, only then paradoxically we are able then to go into the small different bubbles of exploration and understand, because then we stop being biased and we have nothing to defend, nothing to conquer, nothing to prove, and then we become part of a positioning ourselves in reality as ruling reality beings that are open for all, understand wholeness, that everything that is appearing in the daily reality is appearing for a purpose, and it is not to be ignored. Of course, then there are purifying processes, there are things that are starting to oppose us, that are showing things in us that are to be purified, and we are able to purify through the processes of the resurrection. And it is very interesting because from the perspective of the Marvel heroes, or from the perspective of classifying different types of gods and different types of forces, it looks like that the force and the power of Jesus Christ is the weakest one, because he was somebody that just died and okay, was resurrected. But what is so special, he had the ability to die and resurrect, but I don't see anything special in this. Some of us can say, because we prefer bigger powers, we prefer someone from this type of Marvel heroes to be able to directly go into reality, to solve problems and to just stay in the physical materiality, while here we have a process that is unleashed, that is 100% able and is conquering death, is conquering the sting that went through humanity, is able to recycle all the decay into beautiful flourishing processes, and is constantly able to work through our bodies. And we know so many behaviors we don't like, and we are trying to deal with them, and we are pressured and we are pushing forward. We are in so many areas trying to do it alone, while we have the possibility of using this letting go process, where we are okay with the decay, we accept the decay, but then we understand that yes, decay is part of me, but also the possibility of using the transmuting power of resurrection into changing the decay into ascension through this resurrection process is so strong. And of course, long term, once we understand how to work with these Elohim beings, which one we are to use in the moment and which ones are really helpful for us, then we can understand why there is a father figure that all of us around the world are united about, that there is maybe some existence, maybe there is something that is beyond everything, and even the scientists agree about this. But then when we go into the personalization of the different type of beings that are equal or below, it is some type of a questionable thing, because from the perspective of the father, nothing matters because he is beyond and above everything. But let's say if there are some beings that are at the same level as the father, and of course there the power and the idea of Jesus Christ and why he's the Son of Man and why this is the savior of all humanity, and why in the future, according to the Christians, we are going to worship this savior as the redeeming power that gave humanity back what was stolen and brought humanity back to what was predestined for the human beings of transformated light beings to be a little bit different than the angels, because if the angelic beings have some specific powers, we as an adaptive beings now going through all these experiences here on the earth, all of us, it doesn't matter if it's going to be 8 billions or hundreds of billions of human beings, all of us are going to create such a richness in the future worlds, because now through our adaptation, through our experiences, we are going to be transformed to so many beautiful things that all the future reality experiences, of course, if there is a concept of future, are going to be enjoying. That's why it's very important to understand that our usefulness, there is an essence in each one of us today that is unique, and all the forces of the universe are working for and against this uniqueness. And the beauty is that we are not alone. There are a lot of support for us. And once we open, once we understand everything that is possible and probable for all of us, then we are going to be able to much more better stay in our positioning of confident beings that are very useful and necessary for all the reality, because we are not here just to take. Our primary directive in reality is to give the most precious things that all of us have, and to give it away for the beauty and the experience of all the beings in the future. And of course, this is going to happen with the last moment, when we are going to fall into the ground and die and allow the beautiful process to start existing. So enjoy your reality, be open for exploring, and use everything that is out there and is giving us all the possibilities. Anyhow, it is not possible to not understand the higher worlds and to not be connected by understanding what is happening, not only here in the earth realm, what is happening on the above realm, where are we going, what we are in the moment, what we are going to become. Because if we go just into the particular specific bubbles and we are trying to hide and to stay in some comfort zones, we are never going to experience exploding, exponential growth and awareness experiences that are going to bring a very beautiful thing that is going in the end to enter into the ground and to start its new next process. Thank you for watching. Enjoy your reality, and don't worry, everything is deep and it's becoming deeper, but the beautiful thing is that we want to be mindful beings, and more we open ourselves towards the wholeness of what is, more grounded and empathetic, and of course we are going to become much more appreciating towards each other. Bye bye, enjoy your reality and have a nice week.